With me today is my colleague Peter Samardak. Peter, prior to joining Global Coaching Consulting Group, you spent many years doing leadership training and global team building training for IBM. How many countries did you work in?
Well over 20.
Wow.
Globally, yeah.
So you've had a great deal of global experience then.
Exactly.
What are some of the main attributes that you consider for leadership?
It's interesting. Leadership has a number of attributes. One is considering the leader themselves. Are they there for position power, or did they earn the position? And I'm sure we've worked for people that we've thought earned that position of being a leader, and those that didn't. So you have to look at that and say, well, what were the differences? A lot of them, as you look at some of the writings from Benning, from even Dr. John Cotter out of Harvard, they talk about a good leader having a vision of where they want to take the organization to go or the unit to go, and then being able to translate that into terms that their followers basically will have, so they understand where they're headed, have a sense of urgency, how to get there, and have an overall business acumen of what's expected of them as well as what's expected of the leader themselves. So if you look at leadership overall, it's a number of skills, it's a number of behaviors, it's how do you get the job done that you need to do through others, because leading and developing and as well as managing itself is getting things done through others to get the results that you're after. So there are a lot of key attributes that leaders need to exhibit, behaviors and way of inspiring people to move forward, and then being able to identify and attack some of the issues that you have in organizations as well.
Well, you mentioned that there's skills and behaviors, so can leadership be taught?
Yeah, it actually can, I believe. There's if you look at some of the military organizations, such as West Point, that's very close to here, there is a whole leadership development class that they have at the Point, and I'm sure all the other military academies have that as well. Organizations such as IBM, the company that I used to work for, has a leadership development center that they have as well. So if you look at some of those pieces of it, and what are the skills that you need to exhibit, what are the steps that you need to take, how do you act as a leader, what are the methodologies that you put in place, how do you draw from your team to come up with good business decisions, yeah, I think it can be taught. The real question is then, as you become a leader, can you put those in play? Can you make it happen? Do you have the motivation for yourself to carry that forward and be that complete leader? So it's not only learning the skill and having the knowledge to do it, but actually being able to implement that to be an overall good leader or a great leader in the organization as well. So yeah, I think it can be.
I think one of the issues that's always interesting to me is when you're dealing with people who are identified as leadership potential, and as they move up through the ranks, suddenly, and they find themselves suddenly as a leader leading people that used to be their peers.
Yes.
How that has to change, really.
Yeah, it does. All of a sudden, there's a pro and con to having that position. One is if you've had a really good work ethic, and you then move up to that position of being the leader of that department or unit or organization that you worked in, the other people that worked with you will have much more of a respect for what you're doing, some of the things that you're doing, because they'll feel that you've earned it. However, the downside could be is if you've gotten that position and they don't feel that you earned it, that it could have a whole negative impact as well, because then all of a sudden there's a pushback that says, why do you have that job and I don't? Because you didn't earn it. So there's a positive and negative piece in it. I think one of the hardest things to do is initially to manage a group that you've been in or lead a group that you've been in, because you have built some friendships and relationships that, depending on the relationship that you have, could work for or against you. So it's a very difficult position to be in.
Well, another issue of change, in addition to just changing your position, of course, is when the organization changes, say in a merger and acquisition. How does that affect leadership suddenly?
It affects it immediately. First of all, you have the culture of the company that's being acquired, or the organization that's being acquired, and then being able to have them move into your organization. And more often than not, most organizations that are acquiring other companies think of that as, I have to change their culture to be more like mine, but they fail to take into consideration that what's happening is the overall culture, the corporate culture of itself, is changing as well, because you're bringing in this outside entity that all of a sudden affects the way you do business. So as a leader, you have to get out again and do a little bit of backtracking that says, here's the vision of our organization, here's the strategy that we have, here's the mission, here's how we're going to get there, and then how do you need to change maybe some of the way that you did business in that old organization to become more effective and more efficient in the new organization, which, by the way, in itself is changing on top of that. And then you take that to the next step of a global company that says, all right, now we look at the global enterprise, and how does that change? Well, it changes globally. I mean, it's a reiteration of the word, but it's an entirely different culture of then having your, let's say you're American, U.S. based, having your U.S. based company deal with one of your units that are in Germany that has to deal with an Asian corporation that has to then get a manufacturing organization that's in South America to then interface with a corporate entity as a whole. So how do you make all those things work as well from a cross-cultural perspective?
Well, there's a lot from that. Given that you're going back to the mergers and acquisition issue, for instance, though, it strikes me that rather than just trying to merge the two corporations, that they try to take the best from each and create a third style of corporation. And that requires a lot of planning on the part of the leader well before even the merger.
It does, absolutely. There's a lot of background work that's done in research before that, and it's taking the best of both worlds and saying, okay, how do I then synthesize that all to get one best practice that's out there to make it work for the overall company, because you have to take into consideration the melding of the two different cultures, or more.
And dealing with the global issues as well. I mean, there are different styles of leadership that work in different cultures. How does that work with the global corporation?
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting part about it is that leadership globally has a lot of things that are quite similar in the way of the respect for the leader. And if you look at some of the leaders globally, it's those that are inspiring their followers to follow, and how to do that. The different nuances are in the local cultures that make the difference as well, because you have to be aware of those to make it work in those different countries.
It strikes me, we have moved away here in the U.S. from the command and control style of military leadership.
Correct.
Much more to an inclusive leadership. But in a lot of countries, there's still that very hierarchical style of leadership that comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to understand those differences as well, because what works here in the U.S. is not going to work in some of the Asian countries, or not going to work in some of the Latin American countries. You spend a whole different amount of time in socializing, for example, in some other countries than you would in the U.S., where you want to get down to task right away. It's always netted out, get it done. In a lot of other countries, it's like you have to build a relationship first, and you have to make the time to do that if you want to be successful.
And then when you have, as you say, the American company dealing with the German company, dealing with the Asian company, it gets really complicated.
Absolutely.
I think that's for another whole discussion.
Absolutely. And that's where we can help everybody be successful.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Peter.
You're welcome.
We hope you've enjoyed this video, one in a series of programs for global executives and their teams from the Global Coaching and Consulting Group. Please stay tuned for more of our programs for executives and global teams. To find out more how we can help you with your global success, please visit our website at www.globalcoachingandconsulting.com, or give us a call at 212-628-7209. We look forward to hearing from you.